Hi. So today we are going to talk about some of the most beautiful checkmates ever recorded in history. So these checkmates are by prolific chess players like Capablanca, Mikhail Tal, Jan Timman, Bobby Fischer, etc. So let's dive straight into it. So our first study is by Ercole del Rio. So now there is a way to solve these checkmate problems. Now the way is, first you need to identify what all pieces you have that can attack the king to checkmate it. So here in this problem we have 4 pieces. So now we need to find out the forcing moves, because for giving a checkmate you need to understand the position, that in this position what are the forcing moves that you can force onto your opponent so that you can get the desired moves. And now if we look into it, the forced moves are, we can give a check with this knight, and if we give a check with this knight, then the only square that this king has is to move to this square. Now after he moves to this square, this knight, when it has come on this square, can give a checkmate on either of these 2 squares if this king's adjacent squares are already occupied. So this checkmating pattern, it depends upon if you can give a checkmate with this knight, and before that you need to fill this square, fill these 2 adjacent squares of the king with his own pieces. So our strategy is to first give a check with this knight. Now the king has to move. So king has come to this square. Now we need to fill this one and this one, these 2 squares, with his own pieces. Now there are 2 pieces that can fill these squares. If we put our queen here, then this bishop has to take the queen. And after that, if we put our rook here, then this rook has to take this rook. Why? Because our knight is guarding both these squares, so that this king cannot take, and he has to take by these pieces. And after that we will give checkmate with this knight. So let's do it. The bishop takes, so we need to fill the next square. Now the rook takes, and it is going to be a perfect checkmate. So this was our first beautiful checkmate. The main theme in this checkmate was a back rank problem, because we are controlling the 7th rank with our rook. Then we had a knight that could have given a checkmate if the adjacent squares were filled by its own pieces. So we needed to deflect those pieces to those squares, and we had those moves. Let's dive into the second checkmate pattern. This is also by Ercole del Rio. Now in this problem, pause the video if you want to solve it yourself. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so if you have come back, then what we can do here is we can give a check with this queen to the king, and the king has to move somewhere. He cannot move here because our queen will give a checkmate there, and there will be no escape for the king. Second is, the king can move to this square. So if he can move, he is going to move to this square. Then what we have is, we are already controlling this square with our knight. So we just need to do is, we need to deflect this bishop so that we can give a checkmate here with our rook or with our queen. Because if this bishop is deflected, then it cannot come here or support the queen if the queen comes here, and then we will take the queen or the bishop, whatever comes. So the deflection strategy is going to be used in this checkmate. So let's dive into the solution. Give a check, king has to move. Now he sacrifices our queen to see the deflection, but it doesn't do that. He brings the queen, but what we can do is we can pin this queen to the king. Now he has to take one way. Either he has to take the rook and we would have given checkmate here, or he had to take the queen and we can give a checkmate here. So this was another beautiful checkmate which had many themes, like deflection was there, pin was there. So let's dive into our next checkmate. So this is by the first world champion Steinitz. Now in this problem what we can see is this is also kind of a back rank problem, but there is one more thing, that this rook is controlling these two squares of the king. So the king has only one square to move to. Now we need to like push this king to this square, because then what will happen is what we had seen in our first checkmate. So if you want to solve it, how we can deflect the king here, then pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so now how to deflect it? We need to give a check with our queen to deflect the king. Now, but this queen is covering this square, so we need to deflect this queen first to give a check here. And the way to deflect this queen is to sacrifice our rook. Now the queen has to take, and now we can give a check. The king has to come here, and now a beautiful checkmate pattern. We can sacrifice another rook here, because if and he has to take with this pawn, then it is going to be a checkmate here. So it is going to be a weak file, weak back rank checkmate example. So we take it and then we give a checkmate. So this was a beautiful checkmate by Steinitz, the first world champion. So the main issue here was to deflect the king to h7 square and to control the e6 square. Okay, let's dive into our next checkmate pattern. Okay, so this is between Krause and Meinhardt. So now what we can see in this problem is there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 pieces are attacking the king. So we can, like, it is a rule or it is a saying that we can give a checkmate if 3 of our pieces are combined into an attack. And we have 4 pieces there, so we can like sacrifice 1 or 2 pieces even to get the desired checkmate. So okay, let's see what we have here in this situation. If you want to like solve it yourself, then pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so what we have here is this bishop is controlling these 2 diagonals. So the king has no escape square other than this square. So now what we can do is we can push this king here, and then we can give him a checkmate if this rook is removed. So the solution is to deflect this rook first from this square to this rank or this square. If we can do that, then this rook is going to give a check, and then there is only one square which is going to be under the control of this rook as well. So this is going to be a checkmate by deflection of the rook. So let's dive into it. We give a check, he has to take with the rook. Now we give a check with the rook, he has to push the rook back. Now another beautiful deflection, we can give a check with this rook, he has to take, and then now we'll take the rook, and this is going to be a checkmate. So multiple deflections are used in this checkmate. A beautiful one, a back rank problem that the opposition had, and we had to control the f6. We had to control through the f6 bishop, and the rook did all the job in that. So a pattern that we are seeing here is that the king is stuck in the 7th rank or 8th rank, or in the G or H file, and we are using deflection strategy mainly to give a checkmate. Now here also in this problem, this is a match between Shukurovich and Zlatanov. So what we have here is, first we count our pieces that are attacking. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have a 5-piece attack here going on, and a pawn is also there. So there are going to be multiple checkmates in this situation, but we need to find the ultimate forcing checkmate where we have forcing moves that we can employ to get the desired checkmate. Now let's see our moves. The first move that comes to our mind is that this knight is hanging because our knight is attacking it, our rook is also attacking it, but we need to see one more thing, that there are 3 defenders to this knight. This bishop is defending it, this knight is defending it, this king is defending it. So what we need to do is we need to focus on something else, because we will be gaining nothing with this and we will lose 2 of our attackers out of the 5. Now what we have here is, this is also an attacking point, and in this attacking point what we can do is, if we sacrifice our queen here, we will have an attack. Now if you want to solve it yourself, pause the video and try to solve it. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so here is the solution. We are going to sacrifice our queen here. So you can see that if we have enough pieces in the attack, we can sacrifice even our queen and get a checkmate. And this is going to be a recurring theme in the whole video. Now we give a check here. Now what we can see here is, the king has moved to this square, and this pawn, if pushed, can give a check to him, and we give a check. Now this is where the beauty of this checkmate comes. What you can see is, this king can take the rook, and if the rook moves, this king can take the pawn. So we need to give a check to this king while defending this rook. So can you see the move? Yes. If you have found it, this is a brilliant move. The knight gives a check and it is checkmate, because the knight is defending this rook as well as it is attacking this king. This was another beautiful checkmate. Let's see next checkmate pattern. This is Kikayo versus Petrov. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 pieces that are attacking, and we have a queen and 2 rooks here. So let's see what are the key squares that we need to attack. So one square is this bishop square, because it is in front of the king, and if our queen can somehow come here, it can give checkmate. So our whole plan is going to be deflect this queen to squares where it cannot defend this square, and bring our queen to take this square. Also, every single move has to be a forcing move. Why? Because there is a checkmate in the next move. If we are not thinking about it. Of course, this bishop is currently controlling it, but we cannot give up this square without a forcing move, otherwise it is going to be a checkmate. So pause the video if you want to solve it yourself. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so now what we can do is, we need to deflect this queen, and the perfect way of deflection is, first of all, what we need to do is, we can take this bishop, the queen has to take it, and after that we can give a check here, and then the queen has to again take it, and then we can bring our queen here, and then the queen has to come back, and then we will give a check. So it is going to be a constant maneuvering of the opposition's queen to get the desired checkmate situation. So let's see the solution. We take the bishop, queen has to come, give a check, queen has to take, give a check again, queen has to come back, and it is a perfect checkmate. A perfectly orchestrated checkmate where we had to deflect the queen multiple times to control this square and to give a checkmate. So let's see our next checkmate. This is from a match between Podzero versus Kuntsevik. Now, what we see in this attack is there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that can attack, or that can participate in this attack. Now, what we can see is that these 2 knights are more important than these 2 rooks and this queen also. Why? Because these 2 can combine with this rook to give a checkmate. So this is going to be a beautiful example of how bishop and knights can collaborate to give a checkmate. what we can do is we can sacrifice this queen here. Why? Because if the rook takes, then it is going to be a perfect smothered checkmate with our knight. So he will not be doing that, and he has to do something, that is to move his king, and then we will have our desired checkmate. If you want to solve it, I will give you 2 seconds. Please go ahead. Okay, so this is our perfect move. King has to take. Now what we have is a beautiful move that we can put our knight here, and it is going to be double check. This bishop is giving check, this knight is giving check, so the king has to move. So we give a check, our knight cannot be captured, our bishop cannot be captured because we are giving double checks. Now what we do is we have to give another check. So we now just count what all squares are already covered by our bishop. So our bishop is on this diagonal, that means that these 2 squares are covered by our bishop, so we just need to give check. So we can, now what we can see is we can bring our knight here, which can be taken, but it can be retaken by our knight, and then a check is given, and this square is also controlled, so it is going to be a great checkmate. So let's go ahead with it. Check. Or so this can be done 2 ways. This knight can also deliver this checkmate, and this knight can also deliver this checkmate, because it doesn't matter which knight to take it with, because the other knight is going to be giving the checkmate after it is taken by the pawn. So this is one of the best checkmates because it is given by knight and a bishop. Let's see the next checkmate. It is from a game between Johansson and Ray. So what we can see here is we have 1, 2, 3 attacking pieces. So we can give a checkmate with these 3 attacking pieces by using deflection. If you want to solve it, please go ahead. I will give you 2 seconds. Okay, so if we see that the back rank thing again comes here, we can give a check. He can come here. Then we can deflect the king like we did in one of our earlier problems. Then the king has to take, and we can take this rook. And now the beautiful checkmate comes when the rook comes here and we give a checkmate there, and the rook cannot move in between. So let's go ahead, check, then deflect by sacrificing a rook, then give a check, come back and give the checkmate. Let's see the next checkmate. Okay, so let's count the pieces that are attacking. 1, 2, 3, 4. We cannot count this one because this cannot reach in due time for the checkmate. So we have 3 pieces and a pawn that can participate in an attack. Now, can we give a direct check? We don't have a direct check as of yet, because our queen cannot come to any square directly that can give a check. But our queen can come here and threaten a checkmate there if we deflect the opposition's queen. And how to deflect the opposition's queen? That is to sacrifice our rook here. So if you want to solve it yourself, I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay. So what we do is we sacrifice our rook here, the queen is deflected, we come to this square to give the checkmate, the queen comes back. Now we have a killer move here. If you have identified it, then you are a brilliant tactician. And the move is to sacrifice our queen there. Now why does it work? It works because when we sacrifice our queen here, the king has to take it, and then we can give a checkmate using our rook. So let's give it, check, and checkmate. So the back rank problem is there. All of them are forcing move, we had also an in-between move that did the trick. Let's now look at our 10th checkmate problem, that is from Ehrenstein versus Brigmain. Now what we see is we have a filled back rank because these pawns are controlling the king from going out of this 8th rank. So our whole solution is going to be to control this rank. And how we can do is, this knight is already covering this square, so if we take this pawn, we are giving a check here. If you want to solve the problem yourself, I have given the idea, then do it. I will give you 2 seconds. Okay, so the solution is, we take this pawn, give a check, the rook is deflected, then we give a check with this rook, and then this rook will come back, we will take it, this rook will come back, we will take it, and it is going to be a beautiful, beautiful back rank check. Let's do it. Check, takes, and checkmate. So this was our 10th checkmate. We are going to be looking at 64 checkmates that are the most beautiful checkmates in the history of chess. So we will continue our video. This was the first part. There are going to be 6 more parts. Hello. So we are back with our beautiful checkmate series. So in the first part we have seen 10 beautiful checkmates. Now let's start with some new ones. So on our screen is a checkmate position from a game between Borisenko and Nakhimowskaya. So here we can see that we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 attackers. So we have 5 attackers on the king, and we have potential of attacking with 2 pawns as well. So I think, as the saying goes, if you have 3 attackers, then there is a huge chance of you mating someone. So you can do sacrifices of 2 to 3 pieces and you can still get to a checkmate position. So here we have to now go on and look out for some forcing moves. So pause this video if you want to do it yourself. I will give you 2 seconds. Okay, so the solution for this is that we have to sacrifice our queen here. The reason behind sacrificing is that if we sacrifice, then the king has to take. Now, what move do you think we should play that is also a forcing move? Yes, that is this move. So we give a check, we have sacrificed, now we give a check and he has to move back. Now here is a critical position, so not everyone understands or can find out the move that was played. This move is such an iconic move that you have to think for some time to get to this move, and the move is rook here. Now what we are doing with placing the rook here is that we are threatening a checkmate on the next move, and there is nothing that black can do to stop it. So all he can do is take with this pawn, but taking this pawn enables us to give a beautiful checkmate that we will see now in action. So we threaten, and then when we take with this pawn, boom, that is the checkmate, because now the king cannot move anywhere. This is also a problem of a weak back rank that we have exploited. It is completely congested, and we have exploited that back rank by sacrificing our queen and rook. Our 12th checkmate is from a game between Piotrowski versus Tenenbaum. Let's start by looking at the attacking pieces. So we have a queen, a bishop and a rook. So we have 3 attacking pieces and 1 pawn that we can use. So 3 is, as the saying goes, perfect number for a checkmating position. Now let's see what all forcing moves do we have. So if you see that this rook perfectly guards this pawn, so and also this bishop guards this pawn, so we need not to think about it. Now what forcing move can we do, or what can be the continuation that can lead to a checkmate? So if you want to solve it yourself, I'll give you 2 seconds. Pause the video. Okay, so if you have come to the solution is sacrificing the queen here. Now why do we sacrifice the queen here? It is because we want the king to be in the corner, and then since this pawn is supported by this rook behind pawns is always a winning strategy. So that is what we are going to employ. We give a check with the pawn and the king has to move. Now another brilliant move is required to get to the checkmate, because it seems like the king is perfectly hiding behind this pawn, and that move is boom, the bishop sacrifice. But this sacrifice is so brilliant that it showcases how a king can easily be checkmated despite having enough material to save him, but it cannot be saved because boom, checkmate with pawn promotion, because queen is perfectly supported by now rook, and that is a checkmate. So this is highly instructive position that showcases how bad the king is at blockading a passed pawn. In our own games, when you have a passed pawn, do everything to push it, because once the pawn pushes, it becomes a queen and you will 90% of the time get your checkmate. Our 13th checkmating position is between Skuja and Rosenberg's. Let's look at it. First, start by analyzing how many pieces you have in the attack. So we have these 4 pieces, a queen, 2 rooks and a bishop. This knight, maybe it can join the attack, but it is going to be very difficult because it will need at least 2 moves. And the king is far away, so any forcing move is still not possible. 1 pawn is there to support in the checkmate, and yes, we can threaten this. Now what can be done? So what we are able to see is that this pawn is guarding this square, so the king cannot move up the ranks. He has to go sideways, and if we can make this rook move, then this bishop is also going to guard this square, so just a check is going to checkmate this king. So if you can find this checkmate, then pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so the move is to sacrifice this queen here. Boom. Now what this does is it makes the rook moves, and it opens the diagonal so that king cannot move from its place. Now what we have to do is we just have to give a check to this king somehow, and that check is given by sacrificing this rook as well. Why? Because this rook can easily be replaced by the other rook to give the checkmate. This bishop cannot stop it, and it is a checkmate. So sacrificing the queen deflects the defender of the h7 pawn, and it is like a brilliant showcase of how a bishop on a diagonal this open can lead to an exciting checkmate. 14th is from a game between Vasiliev and Shkerebakov. Now here let's analyze the situation. What all attacking pieces do we have? So we have now 4 pieces, a queen, 2 rooks and a bishop, and one pawn can join in this attack. If you can find the checkmate, then please pause the video and try to find it. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so the strategy is to displace this pawn somehow, and that can be displaced by sacrificing this rook. So we sacrifice this rook, this pawn has to take. So when you have sacrificed this pawn had to take, and now what it does is it leaves this pawn undefended and we can take it and give a check. He has to save it somehow, but it cannot be saved. We give a check and now we give the checkmate. Oh, okay, no, it cannot do that. Why? Because it is not even required. We can simply take this rook, and that is checkmate. So central king is the weakest thing in your game, so avoid by centralizing your king when the queen is around. Next checkmate is between Granberg versus Dubnitsky. Okay. So let's just start by analyzing the position. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 attackers, 2 rooks, 1 bishop and a knight, and we have 1 pawn that we can use to checkmate. Now, the position says that this rook can give a check by taking this bishop. So that is the threat that we have to avoid now, because nothing, we can play nothing without saving us from this. So what we do is before telling you the solution, just pause the video and think for 2 seconds how you can solve it. Okay, what we do is we sacrifice this knight here. The bishop has to take. Now we place the rook here, and now it is going to be a checkmate like this. So the main thing was to saving our bishop from an imminent check, and that we did by sacrificing our knight. So the next checkmate is from a game between Monk and NN. This is a very old game. Let's analyze the situation. We have a rook, a queen and a knight. So we have 3 pieces that we can use to checkmate, and by the look of the position it seems like that it is going to be a rook and a knight checkmate, because a rook and a knight combination is deadly for giving checkmates. So we give check here. Now we sacrifice our queen. King cannot take it, it has to take with the pawn because the knight was defending it. And now we give a double check, and the king in the corner is checkmated by the rook. So I did not give like 2 seconds for thinking for users. Why? Because this is the first time that we are giving a checkmate with just a knight and a rook. So in the coming examples, this pattern is going to be used multiple times. That you should think about. Okay, so this next position is from a study by Stemma. This is also a very old game. Is also from a very old game. Now let's analyze the situation. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 pieces that we can attack with, and more than 3 pieces are guarantee for a checkmate attack. You just need to like find an orchestration. If you want to find a solution yourself, just pause the video and try to find this perfect checkmating sequence where it is important to know the move order. You cannot go like you just like bundle up the move order. No, it has to be a perfect sequence one by one. Pause the video for 2 seconds if you want to solve it for yourself. Okay, so if you analyze the position, we see that the king is stuck in the corner already. It cannot move here. Why? Because queen and the bishop is eyeing it. It can move here, so we need to stop it from going there first, and the way to do it is check. So now what this check does is it brings the rook here, and this rook is pinned. So this is going to be the main focus of our game, that the rook is pinned. So we need to think about how we can utilize this pin. Now what we have here is, since this rook is pinned, we can give a smaller checkmate if this rook and this bishop is gone. So our main focus is giving the smothered checkmate, and how it can be done is we can try this rook, but this fails. Why? Because this bishop simply takes it and our attack is completely gone. So what we need to do here is we need a huge sacrifice first, and then we can solve it. And that sacrifice is, boom, the queen sacrifice. Now why did we sacrifice the queen first and not the rook? Because the move order is very, very important here. Why? Because we need the king to be stuck in the corner for giving a checkmate here, and this move had to be there for that smothered checkmate to work, because the rook could have simply taken it and we would have not achieved the checkmate. So now one more sacrifice is required. Why? Because this bishop is still controlling this square, and we need our knight there for giving the checkmate, and that bishop can be deflected by this sacrifice. So now the king is completely smothered and the knight is coming to checkmate, because this rook is the only piece that can capture this knight, but this rook is pinned by our bishop. So this is a brilliant example of how you can checkmate just by using a knight, a perfect smothered checkmate. But for that to happen, you needed to like deflect pieces by sacrificing multiple times, and then to utilize this fork. So it is a very, very beautiful checkmate, where the importance is on move order. You need to construct a mating net by giving the perfect move order. Our 18th checkmate is from the great world champion Capablanca versus NN. So let's analyze what all pieces we have in the attack. So we have a queen, two rooks and a knight in the attack, and this very, very important pawn is there. So now if you want to solve it, just pause it for 2 seconds and try to find the solution. Okay, so if you have found it, great. Now what does this position say? It says that this rank is completely controlled by our rook, hence this king is completely stuck, and we just need to give a check and we would have achieved perfect checkmate. Now how it can be done? So for this check to happen, we need to deflect this rook. We need to deflect this rook somehow. And how can this be deflected? We can sacrifice our queen here, because he has to take with the rook, and then we can again give a check by queening, and then he has to take somehow, and we have this rook to sacrifice as well. So this is how it will work. Boom, we sacrifice our queen, and then we make a queen, he has to take it, and then this is the perfect opportunity for another checkmate by the knight, because this rook is controlling this file. This is a beautiful checkmate where we control the f7 square and just deflect or capture with check, and the knight gives a corner mate. So the 19th checkmating pattern is there. It is a chess tempo problem. Now let's just analyze this situation. We have a rook, we have two rooks and one knight. So we have three pieces in the attack, which is perfect position for a checkmating game. So in this position we can checkmate, and then this pawn is also helping. So now what we need to do is so this, I don't think most of the viewers are going to solve this problem, because this requires perfect precision, because I think this is the toughest problem in our study. So try to find it if you can. I'll give you 2 seconds again. Pause the video. Okay, so now the thing is that we can give a check here, and then we can give a check here again. He has to take the pawn. Now there is one move that does it all, and that move is to sacrifice this rook. This is something that is like most of us cannot think of if you don't know this checkmating pattern, and we give a check like this and sacrifice this rook. But what it does is it gives a check to the king. He has to move, and this movement, it gives us an opportunity to give a beautiful checkmate, and that checkmate is by boom, pawn movement. So a checkmate by a pawn, because the knight was supporting this square, and the rook is completely controlling this file. So this is a rarest of the rare checkmate, a beauty. So our 20th checkmate is from a game between Eglitis and Camergrozis. Now let's just analyze this position. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 attackers that we need to employ to give this checkmate. This is also a very complicated checkmate. If you want to find it, then just pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds, and then we will tell the solution. Alright, so now what is there in this position? This position says that we need to somehow bring our queen here and then here, so that this king can move to this square, and when it moves to this square, he doesn't have any more moves. Why? Because these pieces completely stops the king from going anywhere, and these pieces cannot come to the 8th rank. So for that to happen, what we need to do is find the forcing move, and the forcing move is knight gives a check. It sacrifices this bishop, but it allows our queen to penetrate to the 7th rank, and we give a double check. King has to move. Now we give a check with the queen, and the king is on the square where he cannot be stopped, where checkmate cannot be stopped. He cannot move up the rank, and none of the pieces can move down the rank. So this is the checkmate. A congested 7th rank allows us to back rank checkmate the king. So these are the 20 checkmates that we have shown you. We have 64 checkmates in our collection. We are going to be covering all the others in the next few parts. Let's continue our checkmating pattern series with the 3rd part, and now this is our Next checkmate. This is from a game between Bjorkquist versus Timan. Let's analyze the position by looking at the attacking pieces. We have a rook, 2 knights and a queen. So this is also a very complicated solution. If you want to solve it yourself, pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, so if we look at this position, what we need to do is we need to open up the king, and that king can be opened up if we'll somehow make this pawn move. Why? Because we cannot give a checkmate here with the queen. This knight controls this square. The rook cannot infiltrate as of yet. Why? Because the king is not yet open. So what we do is we bring our knight here. If it doesn't take, we give a checkmate there. So he had to take it, and now the position is completely opened, and we need to place our rook here, and for that to happen we need to remove this knight somehow. And how can we remove this knight somehow? We again have to threaten a checkmate in the very next move. And how can we do that? We can do that by placing our knight here. Why? Because if we place the knight here, this checkmate is again coming. So checkmating at this square is the important theme in this position. So this is why these moves are forcing. They are not giving checks, but they are threatening a checkmate on this square. So we play this move. He has to take it. He cannot take by the queen because we just win his queen and win the game. Now this file is open, and since the file is open, we can give a check with a rook. King has to move, and we just need to move our queen to give this checkmate. So the main thing or the main lesson from this checkmating pattern is that you can make forcing moves by threatening checkmates also. You need not to give check always. So that is a new theme that we are learning in this part. Let's look at our next checkmating pattern. This is from a game between Bogard and Clash. So let's look at the position. We have a knight, a queen, a rook, a bishop. So we have 4 different kind of pieces to threaten a checkmate, and we can possibly utilize this pawn as well to give the checkmate. So how to go ahead with it? If you want to find it out yourself, just pause the video and try to find the solution. I will give you 2 seconds. Okay, so if we look at the position, our queen or our rook, they cannot do anything as of yet because this pawn is completely supported by 3 pieces. So we will just lose material and won't get a checkmate. So what we need to do is we need to open up the king. And how can we open up the king? We need to sacrifice piece, and that sacrifice is the queen sacrifice. Why did we sacrifice this queen? Because we have a rook that we can threaten checkmate with. So we give a check, king has to move up. Now again we need to find out how we can stop the king from escaping. He cannot take the knight, so he cannot escape on lower ranks. He has to move forward, and the file or the squares that he can go to are this and this. So we need to stop him from going there, and that is how we are going to make a checkmating net. So we put our rook there. That is an in-between move, and this in-between move enables us to give a checkmate with this knight. So this checkmate now shows us an example of an in-between move. You don't have a checkmate immediately, but you know that anything black plays will not stop your checkmate even if you play an in-between move, and that is what we have played here. That wasn't threatening anything, but we needed to play it. Now the next 23rd checkmate is from a game between Fischer and Myanmar Suren. So let's just analyze this position. We have a bishop, a queen, a rook, which we can use to checkmate, and this pawn is also going to participate because it is already on the 5th rank and it is threatening to take or to like go to this square where it can threaten checkmate by utilizing the queen. So if you want to find the solution yourself, just pause this video and take 2 seconds. Okay, I'm asking you to pause the video. I'm just stopping for 2 seconds. You can take as much time as you want to. So now the solution to this problem lies in how we can open up the king. So for opening up the king, we need to threaten checkmate in the next move, and how we can do that is by bringing the queen here. So now we are threatening this, so the queen has to come in to threaten it. What we can do now is, this is going to be a very beautiful checkmate. We are already covering this, and if we are going to checkmate, then we need to sacrifice our queen. So we sacrifice our queen by giving it up, and now we are going to checkmate by taking this pawn. He has to take with the king because it was a double check with the rook as well. And here it comes. The king, he has only one square to go, and that is this square. So if we can give a check where this square is also covered, it is going to be checkmate, and that move is bishop. So bishop gives a check, it controls this square also, and that is a beautiful checkmate. So double check is one of the main theme of this checkmating pattern, because the king has to move, it cannot take. So even if one of our piece is under attack, opposition cannot take because the king has to move double attack was there. 24th is from a game between Vitaly Bekova versus Lysenko. Okay, so now let's analyze the situation. We have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 pieces, 2 rooks and a queen. To give the checkmate, we don't have any pawn that is close to the king. So we have to do everything with these 3 pieces. Now, if you want to take time, then just pause the video. Alright, so the solution to this problem lies in giving a check from here. Now why we are doing that is because we are going to deflect the queen from controlling this square, because we want to give a checkmate with these rooks. So rooks on the 7th rank is always a great checkmating pattern, and that is what we are going to do here. So we give a check, he has to take it, otherwise we will take the queen on the next move, and here it is, check, check and check. So the rook on the 7th rank is a popular game strategy that many users even with lower ratings employ to give checkmates, and we just combined it with the queen deflection and we have got our beautiful checkmate. Our 25th checkmating pattern is from a game between Popo versus Angelo, or Angelo, however it is pronounced. So let's look at the position. There is 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 pieces and we need to give a checkmate with these 3 pieces only. So this is also one of the hardest puzzle to solve. If you want to give it a try, just pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Alright, so the solution to this problem, it lies in an in-between move. Boom. Now, this is such a complicated move that most of us cannot even understand the importance of it. Why did we play this move? So we played this move because we wanted to open up the king further and we needed to remove this bishop from this square. And now we give a check to the king. He has to bring his rook and now try to find out the solution. It is such a beautiful and a hard checkmate to find. Boom, we go to the other side and give a check from there. What we have done is we have completely congested 7th rank and we just need to give a check. The king has nowhere to go and it is going to be checkmate. So the main strategy here was to deflect this bishop in the start so that it comes to the 7th rank, and then we deflected the rook as well to come to the 7th rank, and then we gave a checkmate. The 26th checkmating pattern is from a game between Krebs versus Ginsburg. Let's analyze the situation. We have a queen, 2 bishops. So we have a queen and 2 bishops to give a checkmate, and we also have a knight that is close to the king. We can give a check and win the queen straight away. But we are going to find a checkmating pattern instead. So if you want to pause, just find the solution. Just pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Alright, so the solution is to give a check. Now we can take the queen, and we are simply winning the game by just taking that queen. But our queen is also going to be taken, so that is not a good solution. So what we do is we give a check here. Now that is a huge sacrifice. Most of us won't be able to find it. Why? Because why are we giving up a queen like that? We are giving up the queen because let's analyze the situation. What all places can the king go? He can come here. He can come here. So he has 2 white squares that he can go to. Cannot go there. He cannot go there. So what we need to do is we need to bring our bishop to attack one of the white space, and then we need to give a check again, and this check is going to be checkmate. Why? Because every single square is now covered. This was the only square that where he could have gone, but we controlled the square with the knight, and that is checkmate. The 27th checkmating pattern is from a game between Supi versus Carlson. Let's analyze this position. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 pieces attacking, 2 rooks, queen and a bishop. Now if you want to find the solution yourself, just pause the video and try to find it. Alright, so we find that we can give checks from the rook, but the king will just escape. So we need to do something about this, and the solution lies in giving up the queen. Now if it doesn't take the queen, we have already covered this square and we would have given checkmate. So he had to take this queen, and while taking this queen, what we do is that we replace this pawn with our pawn, and then the king cannot move anywhere, and we have got our square covered. And now we give check here, but we can give a check here, but what is still required is that queen should not be there. Of course we are winning the queen, but we don't want that. So what we need to do is we need to capture this queen first, and then we are going to give checkmate there. So the main thing was not to get into winning material when you have a checkmating chance, because you would have been still down material, because he had already 2 rooks, a knight and a bishop, and you would have been left with rook and a bishop. So you would have lost this game in the end. So the next checkmating pattern is from a game between Tal and Rentinen. So let's analyze this position. We have a rook, a bishop and a queen. So we have 3 pieces in the checkmating attack. How can you do it? Just try to find it out. Pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Alright. So if you have found it, we need to trade the bishops. He cannot take, so it is not a trade. So we are simply capturing. The rook was defending it. Now what we need to do is we sacrifice our rook or our bishop. We can take either ways, but it will still result into a checkmate. Now what we can do is, if we analyze the situation, the king can move to multiple places. He can go there, he still can go there, here. So here he already has 3 places to go. So what we do is we take 2 of them. So he had just 1 place to go, and now this is a simple checkmate. So this is from Tal, the magician from Riga, as he is called. So let's just move on to our next checkmating pattern. This is from a game between Winter and Friday. We have 1, 2, 3, 2 rooks and a queen. So we have 3 pieces in the attack. We might just need these pawns, but I don't think we need it because the king is already on a congested 7th rank. He has a congested 7th rank by his pawns, and he's stuck there, and he is completely waiting to be checkmated. So pause the video if you want to find the solution yourself. Alright, so the solution is, boom, sacrificing the queen. So we sacrifice the queen, and what we do is we have this diagonal, and we have this file that we can attack, and he has to move. Now we again give the check, and here comes the killer blow. Because it cannot move up the ranks, this pawn is coming into the play. So what we had earlier thought that these pawns are not going to be utilized, we were wrong. These pawns are going to be utilized in giving this great checkmate. So the mating net required this pawn, and we sacrificed our queen for this mating net to be successful. So our 30th checkmate is from a game between Radovic versus Kozlov. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 pieces and 4. So we have 2 rooks, a queen and a knight to give the checkmate. If you want to find the checkmate yourself, just pause the video. I'll give you 2 seconds. Okay, good if you have found it. The move is to sacrifice the exchange. He has to move down there. He has to move up with his king to take this. Now another sacrifice. We sacrifice our queen, and what we have here is a beautiful checkmate. We take with the pawn, and now the king is stuck in this file. We just need to give a check with this rook, and it is a beautiful checkmate. So there is a wall that has been formed, and this is what we required. We had seen a similar checkmate in one of our previous examples as well.